Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another movie spoiler review. Continuing on with the X-Men reviews, and now going into the movie X-Men Origins Wolverine, which I haven't seen in so long, and feel pretty bad. Aside from maybe like the first 10 minutes, I don't want to say the first 10 minutes, like up to the point after Wolverine leaves his Task Force X group here. From start one to start to the end point of that, this is a pretty solid Wolverine story premise. After that, it really starts going downhill. But before I get into it, please follow me in the links in the description below. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. Check out my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/talkativecarl, where I do video game walkthroughs, as well as check out my Patreon if you want to put in certain requests for certain topics or reviews that you want me to do, and I will get to it. Anyway, to continue on with the X-Men reviews, I just wrapped up Colossus comic book, which you can check out on my YouTube channel if you haven't already. It should be up during the point when you're watching this on YouTube. You should have that up. Look, I think Hugh Jackman, I think it's pretty much considered that Hugh Jackman is like the kind of broke the record on the actor who played a particular role the longest ever, because he played Wolverine for a very long time. And currently at this point in time, Deadpool 3 hasn't, I don't think it's in production right now, but it hasn't been released or anything like that. But you know, after several years since Logan, because I think Logan came out in 2019, 2018, something like that. Yeah, 2017. So it's been 6 years since the last time Hugh Jackman played Wolverine. Because every other time, including the cameos in First Class and Age of Apocalypse, I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He played the same role 8 times. And that's including the cameos. Well, I think like the there's a few Marvel MCU actors who already had him beat. I'm imagining. Like I'm thinking about Robert Downey Jr. Yeah, I think he should have been like, yeah, I think like, yeah, Hugh Jackman's probably like the one with the record right now. Anyway, I could be wrong. I mean, you can fact check for that for me. But man, this, I remember because like there's new, at least this movie came out in 2009. So I was still in college at that time, and people were fuming. I think Ryan Reynolds more so, because he had to play, you know, this was his 3rd time. Well, this will be his 2nd time playing like a Marvel character, but the 1st time doing this character at all. Because he was in Blade Trinity as Hannibal King, and he is Deadpool in this, but he was a proper Deadpool in the first Deadpool movie that only sprung up after the test footage leaked out showing a possible how it will look in the whole bridge scene in the first Deadpool movie, how all that looked, and it was phenomenal. I think I watched that like, you know, like 12 to like 20 times. It was like really good. It was hilarious, and it was a proper Deadpool. And of course, we later had like, you know, a proper Deadpool movie that came out of that years later around Christmas. No, not around Christmas. I think, no, it was Valentine's Day when it came out. And brilliant marketing. I think Ryan Reynolds is like brilliant in marketing a particular product because he's got that wit about him, and it's like so entertaining. And yeah, man, he loves that character, and hated this movie. I mean, he probably I think he hated Green Lantern more so than he hated this. But it's like, if you see like the post credits in the first Deadpool movie, it's like him trying to like not only erase but like wish he can go back and just like, you know, just knock out himself for even deciding to agree to Green Lantern. It was like probably like, you know, the two biggest things he probably regrets, that he just wanted to just vent and get out kind of thing. It just like, you know, get off his chest how much he despised being a part of it. And plus with this, you know, certain studios with Fox, you know, with their mandates and how they was, man, X-Men has been going through like a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and X-Men Origins is definitely in the low category. But compared to something like New Mutants and Dark Phoenix, I think it's less egregious than something like Dark Phoenix, but I haven't seen New Mutants. I won't leave that up to you guys if you want me to review New Mutants, because that's not going to be on my list. I'm not going to review New Mutants. I didn't care for New Mutants. I'm not going to waste my time with New Mutants. It didn't like, it's like certain movies that you know that there's plenty of people who want to see, especially since it took so long coming out. It's just like any further for it really died down. But I was never interested in it from the jump anyway, so it didn't really matter to me. So it's not on the list. But we're not here to talk about Deadpool or New Mutants. We're talking about Wolverine here. And, you know, after this, it'll be The Wolverine, and after that, it'll be Logan, which I haven't seen any of these three. Well, matter of fact, there's a lot of these X-Men movies I haven't seen in a mighty long time. So, yeah, like I said, there's certain things that I would have definitely done. If you want to, because they, not only this, but it also was in talks with having like a X-Men Origins set of movies following a particular character and how they came to be. Magneto was on the docket, but they kind of scrapped that after the failure that was, you know, X-Men Origins Wolverine. And you'll think with somebody like Wolverine, who I think we're all in agreement that the first three X-Men movies was pretty Wolverine centered. And I get it. They wanted to like give you how he came to be Wolverine that we know and lost his memory and everything like that. And that's what made it even worse, because like you pretty much had like a layup. This is, you know, this should have been a walk in the park for you. But somehow you still fumble the ball very hard. It boggles the mind how you screwed this up, and it should have been a very easy thing to like, you know, come out on top with. A lot of things was mismanaged here. But anyway, the movie begins in the past, way in the past, 1845. Which will be around time where in the comics where Wolverine would have been a child. And I looked it up. They were fairly accurate with, you know, that bit with his father and adoptive father. Now, of course, it took a long time before we finally figured out what Wolverine's real name is. Of course, we go by Logan, but his actual birth name is James Howlett. And of course, Logan is also his birth name, but it was a long time, around like mid 2000s, like '09 in the comics or something like that, when Wolverine died and went to hell. We figured out his parental lineage, where Logan was raised by the Howletts, who was taking care of him. But the Howletts has because he was named after Logan was named after James Howlett. But when most aside from his mother and the groundskeeper Thomas Logan, what nobody else realized, that Thomas Logan and Elizabeth, I think that's his mother's name was, Elizabeth Howlett, had an affair, which resulted in the conceiving of Logan. But she wanted to keep that marital affair a secret, so James Howlett ends up raising James Howlett Jr. As his own, until the groundskeeper, who was a known drunk, I guess, got fed up with somebody else raising his kid. He went in, shot James. Wolverine's mutant ability sprung up from the assignment, got the bone claws, and he ends up attacking and stabbing his father, who he didn't realize was his father until the man's dying breath. So they really played it pretty accurate with that part from the comics. They made their own tweaks in the movie here, like Victor Creed, aka Sabretooth, being the son of James Howlett as well, which in the comics that's not the case. Wolverine and Sabretooth aren't brothers or even half brothers. They just really needed a reason to have like Wolverine and Sabretooth to be close in some manner, which I wouldn't say it was like a mistake, but it's like you kind of really fabricated a reason to have these two join at the hip, where you could just have them work with each other. Like in the comics, they worked with each other in like the Weapon X program, but Sabretooth just gotten too used to just being an animal, where Wolverine rejected that part of himself. Anyway, the kid who played young Logan, let me back up here, because I want to say, like, the kid who played young Logan really has, there's a one shot after he stabbed his not known father. There's like a look on that kid's face that looks like a very accurate Hugh Jackman kind of expression on his face. I was like, that is pretty good. That was like a spot on look. But let me go over the casting real quick, because of course it was directed by Gavin Hood. Hugh Jackman plays Wolverine. Troy Sivan plays young James Howlett. Liv Schreiber plays Victor Creed, aka Sabretooth. Will.i.am plays John Rafe, teleporting mutant. Lynn Collins plays Kayla Silverfox. Kevin Durand plays Fred Dukes. Dominic Monaghan plays Chris Bradley. Taylor Kitsch as Remy LeBeau. Daniel Henney as Agent Zero. Ryan Reynolds as Wade Wilson. Tim Pocock plays a young Scott Summers. Max Cullen plays a this plays an elderly couple, like an elderly man. But skip that. Uh, Tanya Tozy plays Emma Frost here. It's like a bit of a cameo and a wasted one of a character. And Jeffrey plays Thomas Logan. Uh, yeah, Danny Hudson is William Striker because I thought I forgot him. So that's pretty much the cast. Uh, I love this. Here's the part that I don't think many people talk about. And I thought it was a kind of like a brilliant idea because we all are fully aware that Wolverine has the mutant ability of super healing, which many people ask, like, what superhero power that I would choose to have? It is healing. I think that's probably the most useful superpower out of them all. I think it easily in the top 5. But I like the decision on before the mutant power manifests, and I think it's kind of hinted that Creed went through it too when he was younger. But young Logan, it was going through, just like a bout of sickness. And he was like, like a fever or something like that. He was like, even though like around that time having even like a slight fever could be deadly to a lot of people, but it's kind of like in a way, I don't know what word to use, but pretty much like maybe like a body, his immune ability preparing itself because going through a bit of sickness now, and it just like working its way into it. I think that was a kind of a clever idea. It's like Wolverine, the only time he probably ever got sick in his life was when prior to him having his mutant ability. And ever since then, he just like, I want to say he never had to worry about pain or anything like that. It's just that, because he can't get drunk and he can never get like sick like normal people, but he still can get hurt and he still feel things, but he just healed pretty fast. So after he stabbed his father, he starts running out of the house. His mother pretty much like in shock, couldn't believe what her son turned into. He runs away, getting chased down by Victor, who's like, we're in this together, we're brothers. And then soon we get like a quick like kind of flash forward montage of Wolverine and Sabretooth going through American Civil War, the first 2 world wars, and then Vietnam. Which, once again, a lot of people agree, this is like part of like, this is the movies we needed to see. Whereas like how like like the rise and fall of Victor Creed. Well, I want to say rise and fall. He seems the way like the young kid who played like a young Creed kind of gives like air of like just annoyance and just like that animal just bubbling to the surface. It wasn't quite there yet. But we really want to see like them and listen to these wars and learn how to use their gifts and how they became useful to them because they have heightened senses and stuff like that as well. And of course, especially when it comes to Creed, because I imagine just a normal person going through a war, just a single war, could be detrimental to their mental health. Somebody like Creed, who lives a very long time because of his healing factor, gone through 4 wars, and especially Vietnam probably be like the biggest, well, they all were a big deal. They're probably the most infamous wars that America has ever fought in history. But Vietnam was like really detrimental to a lot of people's psyches that came back from that war. That was an unjust war, to be frank with you, because pretty much America pretty much trying to throw his weight in another country that shouldn't have been involved in. And it just, it kind of reminds me, if you ever watched the first Universal Soldier movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren's behavior is not that too dissimilar to what we see with Creed, at least what snippet we got from Creed, that if we were allowed to stay in these wars for quite a bit of time, we get to see that, like war is hell. Like him just going through like, oh, I can just be me. It's like, we want to see what drives Victor to just embrace that animal. Like, I get in these wars, I can just kill with impunity. And that's why you keep getting like dragging maybe like Logan into these. And since Logan's like, oh, he's my brother, I gotta stick by him. I gotta look out, gotta watch each other's back. So of course he'll join just to be able to make sure he watches his brother's back, just to know he's okay. Now realizing that his brother is, mentally losing it bit by bit, and probably choosing just ignoring it. But he's just, Victor's just embracing it. It's like, I want to kill. Like, I'm an animal. I want to be able to like just indulge myself with impunity. And it wasn't until Vietnam where he's trying to like grape a Vietnamese woman, where one of the superior officers try to stop him. Victor kills him, and everybody's turning on Victor. Logan swoops in, tries to defend him, and of course it reveals that they reveal themselves to be like mutants, and they probably not understanding, and they court martial these guys, and they go and set to a firing squad, and it's executed, but they just won't die. So they just put it into like a holding cell where they get met up by William Stryker, which of course, I gotta give them a bit of credit. Just give them like a bit of credit where they try to add in stuff that we saw only bits and pieces of in the previous 3 movies, or at least the previous 2 movies, I should say, and try to incorporate them to line them up. Him being in a vat in the tank, and the claw scratches, and him running out of the tunnel and stuff like that, just to have it all line up in a way. Still didn't really fix much for a lot of people, but at least I applaud at least the attempt to get it all lined up. So Stryker recruited Victor and Logan into this T-Max program, and that's where we get this awesome. Now, first of all, before we get into the awesomeness part, the CGI in here, it was so shoddy. I remember, watching this on bootleg because I didn't have like money to go to a theater to actually go see this movie at the time, which I'm kind of glad I didn't waste the money to go see it in theater. But when I was watching this on bootleg, I swear I thought it was something that, it was, badly downloaded or something, because the way like you see like the airplane or the jet like flying through the air is like very shoddy CGI, like unrealistic looking PlayStation 2 looking graphics of a plane. And the look on the animanium claws we see later on, it is just so, like, compared to what we see in especially in the first X-Men movie, the way the claws look in that, complete stark contrast to what we have now. There is no excuse why the CGI in this should be as bad as it is. I doubt they was rushing, because it's like, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes to have certain stuff look as horrible as they did, and it has no excuse. You had the faith of a lot of people behind this The studio's backing you. You had the money, and you what, like, slacked on the CGI effects, or just at the very least should make the claws look good. That's just bonkers to me. But we get the awesomeness with like just Ryan Reynolds just chewing up the scenery with Wade Wilson, and it's just like, yes, we want Wade to just talk. That's why I got like the my own little title thing in my tag, gamer tag thing, Talkative Carl, because I love characters like Deadpool and Spider-Man and Gwenpool, because I love very talky characters. And he just breaking the silence is just looking at Sabretooth, and Sabretooth isn't trying to listen to him. It's like I love swords like this. You want to know why? No, because you break these out in your ex-girlfriend's wedding, and you'll never forget it. Of course, it's not intimidating like like a gun or fingernails like a black bag lady. And of course, this kind of gets on Sabretooth's skin. It's like, I do applaud, because you give Wolverine shoddy CGI claws, but the look of Creed every time you see his claws and then kind of extend, it looks pretty good. And it boggles the mind where I was like, okay, why does this look good? Where it's like it's perfectly, like just the kind of like a like a tiger, or a lion's claws, like kind of extending. It looks very reminiscent of something like that if you ever watch like Animal Planet or something. But you got Wolverine's claws looking shoddy. That is weird to me. It's like, who was in charge of the editing or the CGI? And of course, Wolverine's always there to kind of reel in Victor. And it's also fun to see, like, Wolverine, the most badass superhero in pop culture history, gets airsick. And of course, it's the only time we see him get airsick, because we see him fly on a blackbird in the X-Men films, and we don't see him like get queasy. But we kind of got a funny running joke where he gets nauseous every time he's in the air. Oh, I want to bring up Will.i.am's John Wraith character, because I did play, and a lot of people point this out, I did do a walkthrough. One of my first video game walkthroughs up on my channel, which you can check out on one of my oldest channels, walkthroughs I did on the channel. Of course, the volume, the mic wasn't as good around that time, because I was playing on my 360 Elite, so you either might not have audio from me, or it was shoddy audio. But I think it was no audio. I didn't have it. It was early in my years of me building my channel, so I didn't have like the audio set up properly, so there's no commentary from me. But you can find my complete walkthrough of X-Men Origins Wolverine up on the channel. And everybody's in agreement that the game, just like the Green Lantern video game based off the movie, is better than the actual movie. It's like, why is it? It's just like, I really don't understand. It's like, well, I kind of understand. I guess like the game developers want to make sure they know how bad the movies were, so they went out that way to make sure the game is relatively, even though they're based off the films, they relatively work around all the bad stuff and include stuff that was actually fun. And I think it's also something that needs to come back, because I think the first Thor movie based off the first Thor movie was the last game based off a film that we had. At least from my recollection, I think that was the last one that any game developers tried to do, because by and large, they all weren't good, and most because I think it was around the time where most game developers wasn't like, you know, trusting how the process worked, and of course they had to wait on the movie to come out before they revealed their game. It was a whole mess, and there was no trust behind it, and you know, backing, and you know, so you know, it wasn't gonna be any good. However, I think after all this time, I think a game based off a superhero game based off a movie will probably do very well now, because after the MCU fervor, and you know, people like, you know, got to get these kind of things out because the money to be made. I think uh people will learn their lessons now. So if there was like a Black Panther game based off the first movie, I think we'll do exceptionally well now than it probably would have been back in the early 2000s. So I think we could easily bring that back now. I think people will learn their lessons on what to do and not to do, and make a proper game based off a particular movie. But I also want to bring up about John Wraith, because in the game we had Mystique as a part of this, you know, Team X program thing, and her and John Wraith hooked up, which would explain Nightcrawler. However, because John Wraith has a ability of teleportation, and of course Mystique has a shape-shifting ability, but she has, you know, her realistic outlook is blue skin and red hair, which of course Mystique is Nightcrawler's mother. But John Wraith is not, no, he's not Nightcrawler's father in the comics. Nightcrawler's father is that red demon looking guy that we saw in X-Men First Class. I forgot that guy's name. Because he can teleport too. As Azazel. That was it. Uh uh yeah, he met Mystique in Germany one time, and uh she fell in love with Zazel. uh she became pregnant with Nightcrawler. um she had gone looking for Azazel, but he was nowhere to be found. Later known that Azazel was taking care of business involving the Cherub film and had to leave, knowing that Mystique would find some way to live. However, she didn't have much time to formulate a plan, as the angry villagers soon find out about her lover's, well, the person she's married at that time, who she murdered, who, because he suspected her for of adultery, and the fact that she produced a demon-looking baby. She shapeshifted into to look like a villager, dropped Nightcrawler over a cliff, saying that she had pushed the woman off as well. With her own life saved, she ran away. Mystique was the only woman that Azazel sought to have relations with, besides simple procreation. Uh, um, so yeah, I mean that's, he has other kind of abilities outside of teleportation, like uh, paralyzing energy, a metamorph, wall bending, knows a little bit of magic. Master Swordsman is where I guess where Nightcrawler gets that skill from. Pretty much inherited. So yeah, that is actually the father of Nightcrawler, not John Wraith. Just because one person teleports doesn't mean that they're all related. Sorry, I went off on a tangent here, but I thought I'd bring that up just to give you guys some bit of info. So, anyway, on their mission to Africa, they're, well, Stryker only knows, what he's after. He didn't tell the others until a bit later. He's looking for, he found out about like the special metal name that he dubbed himself adamantium that he's trying to mine. And of course, being Africa, they can help themselves to pillage, wherever the meteorite fell. Of course, luckily they didn't find vibranium, but of course that wasn't a thing in this universe yet. So you see like an awesome display of each of these team members' skill set. Bradley's a technopath, so he is their communications guy and control technology, so they can go in certain spots they can bypass certain security for. You see Agent Zero, who's pretty much like an expert marksman. And of course, Fred Dukes, we know to be as the Blob. Don't get me started on how like shoddy the CGI of the fat rolls look here. But he here in early parts of this film, he is a little bit more muscly, and he's kind of like Colossus without the metal parts. But once they get inside the building, they're in this elevator, which the African crime lord or dictator, whomever, kind of shuts down the elevator to trap them. And then it's just this elevator scene alone is a reason why Ryan Reynolds came back as Deadpool, because he knows that character inside and out. He loves that character. He is made for that character. It was just beautiful. You can tell, like, just the reactions from the other guys in the elevator. You can tell it's like they can't contain themselves. The fact that he was in the cracking jokes, they can't even contain themselves. The fact that there's this giggling, snickering, because this guy was just like just on it, man. And I think if there's any favorite parts from X-Men Origins Wolverine, everybody's in agreement this elevator part was the best part in the entire film. So as Bradley gets control of the elevator and sends them up to the top floor, Deadpool goes out, does his katana things, blocks all those bullets, takes out all the guards there, and Stryker confronts the guy in charge, And it's like, where'd you get this piece of metal? And he tells them about this small village. That's where they seize control of the village and start questioning one of the people there. And only thing he can tell them that it just fell from the sky is a meteorite, but he doesn't know anything else beyond that. So he threatens to kill everybody in his village one by one if he doesn't get the information that he needs. And of course, this doesn't sit too well with Wolverine, as Victor kills one of the villagers, and he's just like, okay, I had enough. It's too much. We've gone too far. It's not what we signed up for. So he goes AWOL, which upsets Victor. Then flash forward years later, he's back in Canada because as a kid, where he grew up was Canada back in 1845. What has yet to be known, I imagine, to be Canada soon. I'm not sure. I'm not sure when it was dubbed Canada yet, but he is Canadian through and through. He just ends up moving back many years later and lived a life with Kayla, his girlfriend at this point. And she plays a role in this film, but you feel nothing for the relationship, honestly, because we never established how did they meet. How long they've been together. Things of that nature. Some meet cute things. Give us something. They just together, and of course, he has nightmares, and then he wakes up with his bone claws out, and you see her with little scratches on her arms, which kind of upsets him because he's hurting the person he loves. But I don't know, I will feel a lot more for that if we kind of set like the basis on their meetup and the start of their relationship, because Deadpool did a fantastic job establishing a relationship between him and God, I'm blanking on Vanessa, and we feel something when he's when she's kidnapped. So he works as a lumberjack here in Canada, just like a simple life with who's with Kayla being a school mom. And Stryker shows up, tries to warn Wolverine about somebody hunting their old team, because he says Wade was taken out, then Bradley, because Bradley ends up getting killed by Sabretooth, who is doing these supposed killings. Now, I want to take the moment to right here to express, because I brought it up in the first X-Men movie. I want to bring it up again. Personally, I think Liv Schreiber's portrayal of Sabretooth was excellent. I want to say that because even though the guy who played Sabretooth in the first X-Men movie probably looked the part, quote unquote, he really didn't speak all that much. There was no kind of words exchanged with him and Logan, because only Logan doesn't remember. He does. So it kind of should establish some type of animosity towards Wolverine that Wolverine doesn't understand, that Sabretooth can exploit and toy with. You didn't get none of that there. They just threw it together. In my personal opinion, kind of like, oh, well, he has to fight Wolverine and he has to be mad at Wolverine, but why? You don't establish why. He just do it because, they'll just, if they watch the X-Men TV show, they should already know and have that information. So we don't have to explain it ourselves in this format. Here, at the very least, we get somewhat of an understanding on Sabretooth's animosity towards Wolverine, because he felt abandoned by his half-brother. And we've been through things together, and you just left me at a drop of a hat. You know, like, I'm not with that, so I'm gonna mess with you for that. But Liv Schreiber really, because he voiced like the Kingpin in the Spider-Verse movie, which he was really good at. But he can play menacing very well, because he pulls off that sadistic, menacing, cadence and gravitas that Sabretooth really oozes. Sabretooth is the most, he's right up there with Carnage insofar as like the most sadistic, bloodthirsty, villain in the Marvel universe in history. He's right up there. And Liv Schreiber really kind of brought that out. If they bring in Sabretooth back, if they bring Hugh Jackman with Wolverine back, they need to bring Liv Schreiber's Sabretooth back, because he really, was really excellent in that portrayal. You cannot deny that personally. So when he's just like stepping up to people, or he just like toying with folks, he just like, he's enjoying it, because he knows that in the end he's going to win. But he just want to savor. He's sadistic. He wanted to toy with the people before he just comes in for the kill. He's like, he's like an animal stalking his prey. It's like Shere Khan in the Jungle Book kind of situation where he's just stalking his prey. It's just like, it's amazing. I give it to Liv Schreiber and his acting skills. I really wish they bring him back too, because it would be amazing in Deadpool 3. We get like a sudden surprise cameo of Sabretooth, played by Liv Schreiber again, in that brown and yellow costume. At least a variation of that, of some sort, because they'll have Wolverine in his. I'm pretty sure he's gonna be the blue and yellow. Because personally, I don't care for the brown and yellow, but I think I like it better with Sabretooth, and with blue and yellow costume of Wolverine being like a good flip side of that coin of Sabretooth. But when Wolverine blows off Stryker, telling him to kick rocks, Sabretooth shows up, kills. We all know he doesn't really kill her. It was all fake. But he kills Kayla. Can't feel nothing for that relationship, because he didn't really establish anything with that person. Like here. But he goes and tracks down, because he sniffs him out. He tracks down Sabretooth at this bar. And one second. He tracks down Sabretooth at this bar. And I love this funny, like I said, I love Liv Schreiber in this portrayal. As horrible as this writing in this movie is, his portrayal of Sabretooth is really good. It's really, really good. He asked the bartender, just casually, you got insurance in this place? No. Too bad. Because he knows about the... It's just the casualness of it. Because, like, it's like, I don't know, it's just like Heath Ledger as Joker and Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin. They know how to turn on the charm when need be before they get into the sadistic part. So Wolverine burst in, asked him why. Is why you don't call, you don't write. How else I'm supposed to get your attention? It's just the level of just dickishness. Sabretooth can, because Sabretooth is a dick, like a sadistic ass. So they fight. Of course, Sabretooth wins, and steps on Wolverine's claws and breaks them, because they're made of bone, so easily breakable. Of course, I had trouble rationalizing how does he get his bones back, but of course, like, bones are still human tissue, which they can heal you know, normal circumstances that, you know, bones don't heal so rapidly, but you know, because of Wolverine's healing factor, of course they do, so he gets his bones back. Uh, so he wakes up in the hospital, talks to Stryker, and of course Stryker denies that he have any knowledge of it being Sabretooth hunted down his old team. So he offers up, he puts an offer up to Wolverine, saying like, you know, I'll give you I found the adamantium that I was looking for. I can graft it to your, you know, skeleton, so that way you can have a better chance to go up against Sabretooth and put him down. And so that's where he signs up to the Weapon X program. And you know, people point out it's hard to think of this guy being later on to be Brian Cox, who portrays William Stryker in X2, because there's not enough correlation to match up with the movie. You know, the director didn't really do a good enough good job to properly match up from what we saw from X1 and 2, or at the very least X2. Because all that line of dialogue where Stryker in that movie was saying to Wolverine, you know, it's like, you know, like when he has, you know, Wolverine has him in his hands, it's like all the things we did together, you know, it's like, I don't know, it's just, like I said, it wasn't lining up properly. It's just, man, say what you will about the prequels, but whenever somebody brings it back up in the later Star Wars films, they properly line up. And they do, Disney does whatever they can to make sure that whatever comes after the prequels, whether a TV show or movies, anytime they bring up certain things from that era of the Star Wars canon, it all matches. Your brain can see the dots connecting. You rarely get dots connecting here. So they go through the program. He wants his dog tags to read Logan on one side and Wolverine on the other side, because Kayla gives him the story about like Heikuwachu, aka the Wolverine, losing his lover who's in the heavens and he's trapped on Earth, kind of thing. So I do love this part as well, where you actually see the, because if X2 gave us the knowledge on the process of which the adamantium is mined, because it comes out and like you gotta keep it hot, because once it cools it's indestructible. So you gotta constantly keep it super heated. That's why it's in this kind of melting kind of vat with heated like syringes. And you see in the X-ray where the syringes are digging into the body, right into the skeleton, and you see the process pour and cover the bones, and you get to see like an X-ray of like, you know, how like Wolverine's, of course you can look it up online too, but you see like the skeleton structure of Wolverine's body, where his, you know, of course the adamantium bonds to it, but the bone claws where they protrude out, it's right in between like the two big bones of your forearm, and the skeletal claws, you know, retreat in between those, and just like all your bones, or just to borrow from the animals kingdom, they can retract on command, or protrude on command. So mentally he can just like call it forth wherever he wants to. So once the bonding process is complete and it's a success, Stryker wants, you know, Wolverine would be moved towards the facility on the this island, and he wants Wolverine's memory erased. Of course, Wolverine hears this, wakes up, and starts wreaking havoc and tearing his butt out the facility. Now, not to say that you can't hear stuff while you're submerged in water, but it's muffled more than likely. Unless they're right up to the glass, you probably won't be able to hear anything distinct. Stryker's way up on this balcony while Wolverine's on the ground floor in the middle of the room. He somehow heard, yeah, you can say it's heightened senses, sure. But let's just say it was heightened senses. It was still been muffled. You couldn't hear that accurately, but whatever. So he wanted to erase his memory, and it's like, I'm not getting rid of my memory of Kayla after that. So he breaks free, and he breaks into this barnyard of this pseudo John and Martha Kent wannabes. They give him some clothes and food, and then he sleeps in the barn. And of course, you get to look at the CGI claws. Like I said, I already said what I said about them. Look stupid. Next morning, as like they bring in coffee, Agent Zero shows up and shoots the old people, which they wasn't gonna last long. And Wolverine takes one of the motorcycles and goes out there and before I get into it, there is a funny exchange between during dinner between the old man and Wolverine. When Wolverine notices the bike in the barn, these two have a nice little camaraderie between bikes. They're bike enthusiasts and stuff like that. And Wolverine makes a comment about how, like, I remember those things when they first came out of the line. And the old man was like, "You must be mistaken, son, because that was like decades and decades ago." And you usually forget that Wolverine is over 200 years old. So it's like, you think Captain America is old because Captain America and Bucky is like over 100 years old. Wolverine is 200 years old, and you tend to forget that when you look at these guys, that they are very old men, but they just look like men in their like late 30s, early 40s. So to somebody like this old man and Professor Xavier, they're kids to Wolverine in a way. They're no different from like 20-year-olds by comparison to him. So Wolverine goes out and takes out this Humvee and the helicopter that Agent Zero is on, and takes Agent Zero out, and then tells Stryker, like, after I go after Creed, I'm going after you. So he gets word that John of John Rafe being in Vegas, and John brings up the fact that a few months after Wolverine left, he left because he couldn't stomach the fact that he was rounding up mutants like them. And they go to talk to Dukes, who's also in this like boxing gym, because Dukes got an eating disorder, while John apparently got some bit of alcoholism, because they had to cope in some manner with what they did. PTSD, which once again could easily be explored with the kind of stuff that they done, and most of them have very long lifespans, most of them, and they all have to cope in some fashion. Could easily be explored, but they don't. So Dukes brings up the fact that this guy named Gambit was the only one that managed to break out of there. He's in New Orleans, which I get, because Remy LeBeau is a Louisianian, more specifically grew up in New Orleans. But since they're in Vegas, it could also be fair to say he should be in Vegas, given the fact that how he's good at cards. He should be in the most card playing place in the nation, but you know, New Orleans makes just much sense because he that's his hometown. So John tags along to go get Wolverine's back, and they finally track down Gambit, which you see like an awesome display of card tricks and, you know, using his kinetic cards and everything like that, which is cool looking. God, I really hope they do like a Gambit movie or something like that for the MCU, because what's his name from 21 Jump Street was, you know, rumored to have been on the casting list, or at least the front runner for a Gambit movie to star as Gambit, but they all fell by the wayside, and you know, that's, you know, not going to be a thing anymore. Of course, they're going to have a Gambit in the X-Men roster for the MCU, but they're going to probably have to go with, most of the roster going to have to be young people in their 20s, or even like at the highest early 30s, to portray the X-Men members for a good 10-year span for the next 10 years for the MCU. So while Wolverine goes to talk to Gambit, John goes out and back just in case he decides to run out the back. That's where John sees Sabretooth, and he's like, oh, I'm going to take out Sabretooth before Wolverine gets a chance. But it's like, dude, you only got teleportation powers. You're really not a match for somebody like Victor Creed. And besides, you know, you don't think he didn't pick up how you probably battle in combat before? Of course, Victor easily, you know, bests him because, according to Victor, like, you're predictable. So and you get to see a cool, because John's teleportation powers are like it being so distinct from what we see from Nightcrawler, because Nightcrawler goes in this bamf puff of blue smoke, kind of like brimstone. John, you get to see his, like, you know, he teleports in and out, and you see his like an X-ray layer by layer of his body, from his like skin, muscle to skeleton, which is like a cool display. And you see, like, when Sabretooth snags him, you see him like grab hold of his skeleton, and it's like, and he ends up killing him. I was like, okay, that was pretty good. That was really good. So when Wolverine brings up about the island, Gambit assumes he's like with them, so he attacks, and as he plows through the concrete wall, or a brick wall, let's just say, he sees John's dead body while Sabretooth is there, and these two fight, and of course you see this horrible looking claws on display once again. Like I said, I cannot stand how bad they look here. He finally starts to get the one up on Victor, until Gambit swoops in, somehow helicoptering his staff, and sets out a kinetic shockwave, which sends these two flying on opposite ends. Victor ends up getting away, and Wolverine questions Gambit, saying like, I'm going to kill everybody there who you probably do not like. I just need you to get me there. So after that convincing, Gambit you know, uses like a little boat slash plane, seaplane that he won in a card game, jacks over fives to get him close enough so he can, like, you know, Wolverine can jump out and sneak on the island. There he not only witnesses mutant kids captured, including Cyclops, who was captured by Sabretooth, which honestly, teacher like very unsympathetic given the fact that this kid says he has a headache. Oh, well, you can just go to the detention. It's like, screw you, lady. What the hell? What did he put like a thumbtack on your seat or something? Like, what the hell? And of course, why does Cyclops has ruby quartz glasses at this point in time before he met up with Charles Xavier, who's the one who provided him that stuff, which he did not have yet? I don't know. So Wolverine finds out that Kayla is not only alive, but it was all a trick. Because Stryker has her sister in captivity, and she was only willing to work for him if he released her, which of course he reneges on that deal, along with Sabretooth, who he promised to, supply him with adamantium claws as well, but according to his research, he wouldn't survive the bonding process. It's like, why would you care? You can just go through with it. If it kills him, all well. Because if you learn later, he doesn't have care for mutants at all. You only see it, and you also obviously see a brief shot of his son in this cold storage thing, which you know what happens to his son later in X2. Really don't explore all that with the line of dialogue Brian Cox point out to Xavier, how the boy was messing with our heads with these illusions, and the wife went nuts and took a power drill to her head and everything like that. We could have easily explored that a bit just to get everything lined up. So Wolverine's, brokenhearted, decides to leave, then only comes back when Kayla's about to be attacked by Sabretooth. She prevents him from landing a killing blow because dealing with the healers, like Wolverine, Deadpool, and Sabretooth, you're going to have to cuff their heads in order to permanently put them down. He tells Agent Zero this earlier in the film when they went after Wolverine, and it's like, well, kind of hard to cuff his head when his skeleton is coated in adamantium, a hard substance. So the point in trying to do that to him. So Stryker wakes up Weapon 11, aka Deadpool, or not Deadpool. So disgusting, and it's, oh my god, it just like, I think it bothers Ryan Reynolds more so than any of us combined, but it's just like stupid and horrendous of what they did to this iconic character. They sewed his mouth shut. A character well known for talking, you sewed his mouth shut. I'm pretty sure people asked the director why they went with this choice, and I'm pretty sure the reason is pretty stupid, but I can't dwell on it. And we get this scene with like Emma Frost. Why is Emma Frost here? For reasons, and he's not really related to Kayla Silverfox. So Wolverine breaks out all these kids. Wolverine takes on Weapon 11 while Emma takes all these kids, which has Patrick Stewart in Cyclops' mind directed him, was lead him out, which brings up the question: when Wolverine came to you in the first X-Men movie, and he brings up like, what's the last thing you remember when you first start losing it, when you recognize that you couldn't remember anything? What was the first thing you do remember? Oh, I woke up in this island with that looks like a nuclear power plant. Oh, that's funny. I remember picking up some kids from an island that looks like a nuclear power plant. Oh, that's where you can retrace your steps. Could have done any of that stuff or at the very least leave it out so people won't be asking these kind of questions on why they didn't line all that up. That's bizarre to me, bizarre to a lot of people. So they get all picked up. That's the last time we see them now. And Wolverine and Sabretooth team up to take on Weapon 11. And it's a nice little callback where it's like, you know, back in the wars in WW1, where it's like, oh, back to back, when they, you know, taking on forces that's engaging them. And they end up taking down Weapon 11, cutting off his head. And Wolverine's like, this doesn't make us even, but you know, Victor was like, we'll always be brothers, Jimmy. And so Sabretooth goes his own way, and then Wolverine about to take on Stryker. You know, Stryker has these animating bullets, shoots Wolverine in the head, which caused his amnesia. But of course he's healing. But Stryker, you know, just assumes that's going to affect his memory. Why would it? How would you know it's going to affect his memory for certain? You could just put in a line, well, this should be able to like get a dent through the skull, and just by happy accident, he loses memory. He shouldn't just been assuming that's going to happen. Like you read the script, like it's got to happen that way. Of course, Kayla grabs a hold of him because she's mortally wounded by, you know, one of the soldiers' stray bullets. And she has the mutant power of persuasion, very Purple Man situation, except he doesn't need physical contact. She tells him to keep walking till his feet bleed, and then later on he gets picked up by some MPs, which he's under arrest for the murder of the general he was working with that wanted to shut things down. And Remy picks up Wolverine, has no memory. They go off in their separate ways. And that's where the movie ends. Of course, you get the end credit with Deadpool shutting the camera. It's nothing. It amounts to nothing. Don't worry about it. But that was X-Men Origins Wolverine. Still pretty bad. But I haven't seen Dark Phoenix yet. I avoided that for a long time because I knew it was going to be bad. But it'll be my first time watching it, because that's why I leave that as the cutoff for the X-Men movies. Because I cannot bring myself to watch New Mutants. I can't. I'm sorry. But let me know in the comments what you thought of X-Men Origins Wolverine. I already laid out the good points that I did like from the film, but it still got overshadowed by all the bad. I do hope, like I said, I hope Liv Schreiber comes back as Sabretooth, because I think he did like an awesome job portraying that character. So don't know if anybody agrees, but that's my take on it. But let me know in the comments what you thought of X-Men Origins Wolverine, and good points that you might, you know, squeeze from this lemonade at all. But I'll see y'all in a few minutes as I go over season 3 of the 90s X-Men TV show. And I already have the first 2 seasons up on the channel if you want to know my thoughts on each of the seasons. But I will see y'all next time. Take care. Be safe.